As we're in this month of our authentic self, authenticity, I went to the master of authenticity, which is Rumi. And he wrote a beautiful poem reminding us to keep coming back to the roots of who we really are in order for us to truly express in this 3D, very human world from our divine self. So this is the garden beyond paradise. Everything you see has its roots in the unseen world. The forms may change, yet the essence remains the same. Every wondrous sight will vanish, every sweet word will fade. But do not dishearten, do not be disheartened. The source they came from is eternal, growing, branching out, giving new life and new joy. Why do you weep? That source is within you. And this whole world is springing up from it. The source is full. Its waters are ever flowing. Do not grieve. Drink your fill. Do not think it will ever run dry. There is an endless ocean. From the moment you came into this world, a ladder was placed in front of you that you might transcend it. From earth, you became plant. From plant, you became animal. Afterwards, you became a human being, endowed with knowledge, intellect, and faith. Behold the body, born of dust, how perfect it has become. Why should you fear its end? When were you ever made less by dying? When you pass beyond this human form, no doubt you will become an angel and soar through the heavens. But don't stop there. Even heavenly bodies grow old. Pass again from the heavenly realm and plunge into the ocean of consciousness. Let the drop of water that is you become 100 mighty seas. But do not think that drop alone becomes the ocean. The ocean, too, becomes the drop.
Need a moment of peace or inspiration? Call the Unity of Tucson prayer line for a comforting, uplifting prayer, available 24/7. Each month, we offer a new affirmative prayer to support you on your prayer journey. Call today and let the power of prayer uplift your spirit.
Are you spiritual but not religious? Do you believe in unconditional love? Are you ready to create the life you know you deserve? Are you looking for an inclusive spiritual community? Do you want to discover how magnificent you really are? If you're looking for a spiritual path that's all about love, freedom of choice, and compassion,
we can't wait to meet you.
Unity of Tucson, Sundays at 9:15 a.m.
I knew you were going to sing that song, and you told me why you were intending to sing that song. And the funny thing is, I hadn't really worked into any of my talk notes, any reference to the pilgrimage that I took in Spain. But you know what? Spirit has a funny way of bringing something to mind. And it's kind of connected to the trip I just returned from as well. So while I was away, some of you who are connected with me on social media may know that I was up in northern Ontario, up in Canada. My husband and I drove up there with our 1-year-old golden retriever puppy. Marcus, who was a dream. I'm telling you, he travels so great. Made a lot of friends and really grateful for that. So we drove all the way there and we drove all the way back. Well, on the way back, we decided to take a full day in Denver. And part of the reason that we wanted to take a full day in Denver is because my friend Bill, who I met on the Camino, had moved to Denver this year. And so we got to spend an entire day with Bill this year. We got to spend an entire day with Bill on, what was that? Thursday. It was Thursday. And what a treat that was, because Bill and I had not seen each other since we parted ways in Spain 2 years ago. It was really special. One of the things that I always think about, though, because Bill was really perhaps the most significant individual that I met while I was on the pilgrimage. I met a lot of people, and a lot of people that I still have connection with. But Bill and I even said to each other, that for each other, we were the most significant friendship that was developed on that journey. And so it was really special to be able to see him again and have lots of floods of memories of the Camino come back. One of the things that we often have talked about, Bill and I, is, and this is true for all pilgrims. I'm on various, groups on Facebook of pilgrims and Camino pilgrims, And one of the very prominent things that always comes up is this idea: the Camino provides. You are never wanting for anything on the Camino because the Camino provides. And it is a lesson that actually ties in beautifully with what I've chosen to offer today, which is life provides if we are open to allowing life to provide for us. But boy, do we shut that hose off sometimes, right? We kink that hose. We're like, oh, no, it can't possibly be. No. And so we don't allow ourselves to be open to the infinite flow of good that is there for us to experience. The Camino provides. I have chosen to live from that point of view, knowing that the Camino is simply a metaphor for my journey in life. And so my life is always providing for me. So today, I told Sherry the talk title 3 weeks ago before I left town, which was a thrill for her because I usually don't tell her the talk title until about an hour before the email is supposed to go out on a Wednesday. I said, when I come back, I want you to, when I come back, the title of my message is going to be The Energy Exchange. The energy exchange, because we are all living within an infinite exchange of energy all the time, no matter what. Eric Butterworth, who is the author of many books, but the book I'm quoting today is a book called Spiritual Economics, had this to offer. He wrote this: there is a divine mind counterpart for every human need. There is an answer for every problem, substance for every financial requirement, a job for every willing worker. As far as your experience in the marketplace is concerned, you make the difference. Sounds like the Camino provides. Sounds like life is there to provide, right? There is a divine mind counterpart for every human need. Everything we perceive as need is met in its perfection in experience because the divine power and presence that we call God is allowing that to come into expression in our lives all the time. Sometimes we just need to open our eyes to see it. And it may be showing up in ways that are unexpected. And that's why I think sometimes we don't see it, because it's showing up in ways that are unexpected. All needs, every need we have has a corresponding supply in the infinite, which then comes into expression in form. You know why I know this? Because I can conceive of it. I can conceive of the answer to every need. And so if I can conceive of it, then every need must be met in form. That is a fundamental premise of the philosophy we teach. Everything that is in the world of form is a product of an infinite mind, an infinite power, an infinite consciousness of which we are all a part. Our outer world responds to consciousness, and any effort to create a change in circumstances must begin with a change in consciousness. Debating if I want this to be rhetorical or not. Anyone feeling challenged in any particular way in our current atmosphere of experience? For every problem that you perceive as a challenge, there is a corresponding solution in your mind. And if you are willing to allow that solution to express itself in your life, then there can no longer be the experience of challenge. Everything begins in mind. Now, how does this relate? Because the theme of this month is authenticity. So part of my thought is, okay, I come up with this idea, the energy exchange is the name of the song, or the name of the talk title. And how does that relate to authenticity, this month's message? Well, authenticity means, as I said 3 weeks ago when the month started, and then I was gone for 2 weeks, but authenticity means showing up fully as yourself without minimizing or exaggerating, trusting that you are enough to meet life with your own sense of infinite abundance. How's that for allowing ourselves to live through and from authenticity? Our well-being in this experience of life is never about the form of stuff, but about our relationship in mind to the infinite circulation of divinity. And it's not just, sometimes people think, oh, he's going to start talking about money, and ministers shouldn't talk about money. Ministers do talk about money, by the way. But when I talk about well-being, I'm not talking just about financial well-being. I am talking about all aspects of well-being. I'm talking about emotional well-being, relational well-being, physical well-being, creative well-being, vocational well-being, and yes, financial well-being. We are in an infinite energy exchange, and that energy exchange is the key. We are active participants in this energy exchange all the time, whether we know it or not, whether we can conceive of it or not. We are actively participating in it. One of the ideas that I offer when I teach class, and especially classes on prosperity and abundance, is that our well-being in many ways can be distilled down to the idea of a four-legged table. What does he mean by that? If you have a table with four legs and one of those legs is shorter than the other, you have an unstable table, right? It's wobbly, right? And so the idea is you want to make sure that those four legs are all equal so that your table is solid. So each of those legs, from a spiritual point of view, can be financial. It can be with respect to your health. It can be respecting your creative expression, and it can be expressing your relationships. Those are the four legs of the table, and almost every perception of challenge in our lives may be distilled back probably to one of those four ideas: relationships, wealth, creative expression, and health. Usually when people come to see me for spiritual counseling, I can always distill down whatever is being experienced down to one of those ideas: relationship, health, wealth, and creative expression. And the idea is that we seek balance in all of those things so that the table of our lives is not unstable. Got it? So it may be worth reflecting upon in this moment, is there any place where one of those legs for you might be a little bit shorter? And do you have the willingness to recognize that the answer to what it is you seek begins first in mind and then comes into expression through your absolute acceptance of it? Now, I've been asked a few times to speak on the notion of prosperity as a spiritual experience. And I think to myself, well, why? Well, there's a lot of fear right now. There's a lot of fear in the world around financial well-being. Anyone feeling it? I'm feeling it. Y'all feeling it? A little bit, right? And so we have spiritual solutions to every problem. So if we are feeling fear around financial experience, then there must be a solution, because there can be no problem without an inherent solution. Think about that. If it didn't have a solution, we would not perceive it as a problem. Really want you to hear that. If it did not have a solution, we would not perceive it as a problem. So shifting our prosperity experience begins with this, asking perhaps these questions. What energy do I have that I want to give? And what energy is it that I would like to receive? And remembering that we are in a constant state of giving and receiving. It is an infinite flow, and the only thing that ever stops that infinite flow is us. Oh, and I've stopped the flow in my life. If I have gotten into a place of fear, oftentimes my response to fear is withhold, right? I've now kinked the hose of infinite circulation. Sometimes that fear for people is, I must give. I've got to give it. I've got to get it all out. I've got to give it, right? that actually imbalances between giving and receiving, creates an imbalance. And so finding the balance between giving and receiving is the manner in which we may find solution to financial problem, to relationship problem, to creative expression problem, and to health problems, remembering that every problem has inherent a solution because we would otherwise not perceive it as a problem. Every exchange we have in life is primarily an exchange of energy. When I speak to you, I am exchanging energy with you. Do you know that? I am receiving just as much from you energetically as I hope. I don't use the word hope lightly, but I hope in this case that you are receiving energy from me, and we can be in this infinite circulation, and there is no kink in the hose of that exchange right here and right now. All transactions, all interactions are primarily exchanges of energy. Now, the energy can look like money, but it's not limited to money. Money is a reflection of what we feel about ourselves. Oh, people don't like hearing that. Because then they'll go and they'll say, well, if I look at my checking account, that's not how I feel about myself, is it? There may be something working below the level of awareness that is how you feel about yourself. I ask people, when I teach prosperity classes, I ask people to do an exercise, usually fairly early on in the experience of the prosperity class. I'm going to try to explain it to you as best as I can, knowing that you probably do not have an accounting degree. I don't have an accounting degree. But I had to learn the concept of particular financial reports because, well, I do run a business. And if you think that church isn't a business, church is a business. So one of the things we look at, one of the reports that we look at is what's called a balance sheet. I heard that. And so the idea of the balance sheet is you are taking what your assets are and you are looking at those balanced against your liabilities, and the difference is what we call our equity, right? So if you look at, say your asset, I'm just going to make it as simple as I can. You have an asset that's a checking or a savings account. Let's just say you have a checking account and you have an asset. You have cash in that checking account, right? And that's your asset. Let's just say that there's one asset that you have. I know you all have more than one. Then you have liabilities. Those are things that you owe, right? So a liability would be like debt owed on a credit card. Now, if you have more debt on your credit card that you owe in relationship to the assets that you have to be able to pay it, then you have a negative equity. You're underwater, right? Y'all with me so far? Okay. I didn't know I was going to be doing a full lecture on accounting today. But there is a spiritual way of looking at this. What if your assets are all the positive things you say about yourself and the liabilities are all the negative things you say about yourself? And if the negative things you say about yourself outweigh the positive things you say about yourself, then you have a negative equity standing. How we feel about ourselves is so important to the quality of life we seek to live. How we feel about what we give and receive shifts the quality of our experience. And so today, part of the call is to be in authentic gratitude for all that we give and all that we receive, because authentic gratitude as a consistent practice sets the tone for our experience of life. I have often found that if I'm having financial challenge, there is something in my life that I am not actively forgiving and that I don't have gratitude about. And when I address the issues of forgiveness and apply gratitude, it always turns itself around. I have demonstrated this in my life repeatedly. Charles Fillmore offered this to express authentic gratitude. He said, "Bless what you receive, bless what you send out. God's plenteous substance moves in and through our mind constantly like a light shining in the darkness. Bless what you receive, bless what you send out. God's plenteous substance moves in and through our mind constantly like a light shining in the darkness." Now, to bless is to affirm the sacred nature of a thing. We have a practice here at the completion of my message, and I give the home practice, right? And then we do the offering. It's that one moment in a spiritual center or church experience where everybody kind of goes, oh, here they come with the baskets, right? And as we gather what it is you're offering, we bring the baskets up here, and we have a blessing exercise because we are affirming the sacred nature of not just what's in the baskets, but the experience of giving and receiving, that they are in balance with one another. When we bless, we align with abundance rather than lack. When we bless, we are aligning with abundance rather than lack. And so, what is it you might bless in this moment? Just take a moment to silently bless in this moment some idea, something that you are grateful for. In that experience of blessing, you are aligning your mind with abundance rather than lack. Blessing reclaims sacredness. It says, yes, this is a sacred experience. And here's the thing about life. All of life is a sacred experience. 100% of it. Because I don't hold to the idea that we are human beings having a spiritual experience. A lot of people say that, right? And then they say, oh, no. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And then I say, no. We are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience. Because if we think that anything is separate from spirit, then we think that there is something other than spirit. That is not at the core of what we teach. Everything is divine. And so, all form is sacred. So we are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience 100% of the time. Doesn't always feel that way, but it is that way. There is no separation. There is no separation. Our feeling of richness becomes an experience of richness. Our feelings translate into the experience of our lives. In contrast, if we complain, if we disparage something, if we minimize the experience of life, that cuts off the flow and it becomes an energy stopper. So check in to see where you might still be holding on to complaints or have disparaging thoughts or ideas that might even express themselves as disparaging words about anything in your life. See where you might be minimizing yourself or seeking to minimize others, because all of those things cut off the flow of the experience of infinite prosperity, of infinite flow, of infinite energy exchange. Wherever we stop the flow, we experience lack. It's as simple as that. Wherever we stop the flow, we experience lack. So practice blessing everything in giving and everything in receiving. It's a practice. When you pay a bill, bless it. When you receive a paycheck, I know not everybody still receives paychecks, but if you receive a pension check or a Social Security check, whatever you receive, bless it. Because blessing infuses circulation with conscious authenticity. And finally, our financial well-being often mirrors our sense of self-worth. That's why I go back to that balance sheet idea. Our financial well-being is often a reflection of what we think and feel about each other, about ourselves. So where are you on that? When we lean into the liabilities, that is, when we speak negatively about ourselves, we distort the flow of divine substance. The form of our lives conforms to our belief. If we believe we are unworthy, we experience and we experience the related form that conforms to that idea, if we believe we are unworthy. Ideas are God's currency. And God's currency is unlimited, right? Because we have unlimited access to infinite ideas. The practice, then, is to claim authentically the truth of our being at all times. That truth, we are expressions of the infinite. And that's what we are called upon to remember when we state, remember who you are. We are, each and every one of us, expressions of infinite source. The marketplace of life responds to the consciousness of self-worth, self-esteem, and awareness of presence. If you are experiencing some challenge in finances, the call then is to reframe any stress or struggle as opportunities to practice alignment. Alignment within and through the flow. Begin to see all experiences, every single experience you have, begin to see all experiences of energy exchange as an extension of your authentic presence. Your authentic presence is God. It is divine. It is source. Abundance and circulation are authentic expressions of divinity. Because God is infinitely prosperous. Did you know that? How could God be anything other than infinitely prosperous? And if we are aspects or facets of God, then that infinite prosperity must be what we are and can experience. And the only thing that ever limits it is us. You are not separate from divinity. Not a single one of us is separate from divinity. You are not separate from that authentic expression, a dynamic and integral part of an infinite energy exchange. That is the truth of your being. That is how I invite us all to continue thriving in our lives, not just surviving in our lives, because thriving is a mindset. And so let us move forth from this point in the infinite energy exchange of thriving. Peace and blessings. You are magnificent. And so we're going to actively this week, we are going to increase our assets on the spiritual balance sheet. We're going to do that through this practice, this home practice this week. Say nothing disrespectful or disparaging about yourself this week. Well, I hear some people going, ooh. Catch yourself if you find yourself moving in that direction. So, say nothing disrespectful or disparaging about yourself. Do not minimize yourself in any way. Catch yourself before speaking and reframe the thought. That's the home practice this week. I think it's an important home practice. And, one of the things about the home practice that I would always like to remind us of is maybe do it beyond this week too. That you can accumulate these home practices and let them become habits in your life, right? And see how your life transforms. That's the practice.